Live.
Hello, welcome to Map Camp. Gosh, we've just been talking about how long we've been doing Map Camp. This is 8 years or so. It all
Yeah.
started ages and ages ago with me saying I'm going to the pub. Does anybody want to do mapping? And then out of this was born this conference. First of all, delighted you're here. I'm here with Stevie. Stevie,
Hello,
you say
everybody. 8 years. And look, no wrinkles. Marvelous.
What do you mean no wrinkles? Oh, you're gonna have to tell me your skincare secret. Anyway, I'm so excited. I'm always really excited about this event. A couple of usual sorts of things to mention. Don't forget there is a code of conduct. Okay, Map Camp should be a safe environment for all, and we do everything to make sure that it is. Obviously, when you're on these talks, I mean, there is a chat. You can ask questions. That's all available. Now we've got to thank our sponsors because we wouldn't be able to do this event without our sponsors. And we've got Essential Project, we've got MapKeep, and we've got PipDecks, all who've kindly jumped in to make this possible. And we've also got to thank our speakers. We've got an amazing lineup of speakers today. Some really great talks. Not saying that the previous years weren't great. They were obviously great. I think they were great as well. But really pleased with the lineup we have today. Of course, we've got to thank our organizers. Jane, you will find. I don't think Jane is on the call. She is hiding away in the chat rooms, which we'll take you through and explain in a minute. And of course, we've got Steve as well. I mean, Map Camp. It takes us. Gosh, how long does it take us to put this together?
It takes about 6 months or so, really, to do this put together. And that's on a good timeline. And we actually started this one 8 months ago.
Terrifying, isn't it? Going through the process of working out what the themes are and finding speakers and putting it all together and organizing, because a lot of stuff goes on in Slack and everything else, because we have this bizarre format where we get multiple speakers to come and speak together in a session. We like to do these, I call them Hegelian dialectics, where we have thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. But these things take time. They do. It has been about 8 months just to put this, but we're here, and
Yeah.
I just want us to get started. Very excited.
It's been brilliant, isn't it? I mean, it's been such a tough year as well. And everybody that's been part of this has been so brilliant and so exciting. So huge thank you to them for all their time giving to us and, and helping out fabulous charities as well, which is incredible.
Yes, we support charities. Who are we supporting this
So
year?
this year we're supporting one of my faves, and actually Jane's faves as well, is Parkinson's UK and Cancer Research UK. So both, obviously, Parkinson's is in honor, it's a personal thing for me because my mum's at stage 5 Parkinson's, and for Jane for family reasons for Cancer Research as well. But we really sort of believe in these charities because they look after people so well. So from the administration to the amazing research that's going on into the future. And actually, fingers crossed, I might actually get mapping involved with Parkinson's UK as well. So, which is something we're discussing right now. Yeah,
Awesome.
So it's super exciting.
One thing that I can hear a bit of an echo. That might be my fault. So I'll make sure, if you're not speaking, please do keep your microphones off. I should take my own lesson there and do that as well. So my apologies. And we've also got a couple of other people. Just minor, not so important. Our co-chairs basically take you through the entire day, introduce you to all the speakers, and help coordinate all the questions and answers. And our co-chairs are Davey and Jen, and who've been with us. Hey, you've been with us from the beginning. So we can't be that terrible, given the fact that you're still turning up. And so huge thank you. Jen, Davian, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. So yeah, as Simon has mentioned, I've been involved in MapCamp for the past few years since it started. As Simon mentioned earlier when we were having a chat, in that little church in London. And yeah, it's obviously been going strong, ever since. I really appreciate that this event donates to like health charities as well. Simon knows I've been to a bit of a health situation myself the last 2 3 years. Yeah, but I'm coming out today to support this again, and yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Jen, and it is absolutely delightful to have you here. Really, really, really appreciate it. So thank you ever so much. And we've also got Damien. Damien, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you. I think for us, the experience as co-chairs is really quite nice because we get the whole learning experience. I've watched and been part of some of the planning, of course, not the deep planning that the actual speakers do, or the absolutely involving and just mind-boggling stuff that Jen will get involved in terms of setting up this platform, Steve getting all the charity work and sort of all of the benefits to flow downwards. So for me, I always get to sort of join. I think this is my 5th year, and I always get to sort of come in and do 12 hours of learning from some really intelligent people who have got some opinionated points of view, and I'm just looking forward to that. So first of all, thank you to the organizers and to you, Simon, for the opportunity. The theme, which Simon I know will talk about, is all around resilience, and just listening to Jen there, I broke my leg just over a year ago. It was a horrific break. And sort of had all sorts of hiatuses, and it really allowed me to think about some of the subjects that will come up as part of resilience and recovery. So really looking forward to some of that as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Damien. Yeah, as you said, the themes are about, well, there's 2 themes: the sustainability theme, which is how do we make what we have sustainable. And we're talking about not only the environment, but also business as well. And then there's this theme of recoverability. How do we cope with shocks to the system, which includes things like resilience is a major part of that. But also, how do we organize around these spaces? And I've got to say, I'm really excited. We have some pretty amazing talks today, talks which I'm looking forward to. Damien's absolutely right. There's an awful lot of stuff that goes on in the background to make this this event happen. Yes. Well, Damien, because I knew you because we used to work together. God, a long time ago at Canonical.
And it is fair to say, Jen, I wasn't around right from the beginning. It took me a good 3 years to work out what you were talking about, Simon.
That sounds normal.
Really being there right from the beginning and really showing how the co-chair job should be done. So I think that's worth noting. You're on mute.
The first person. There's always got to be somebody. It always has to be me who starts speaking when the mute button is on. There we are. So we got that out of the way. Hopefully no more technical hiccups the rest of the day. We've also got the whole VFairs platform. So I'm going to quickly share my screen, and give me a moment. There we are. Can I just can I just check that you can all see that my screen is available? Can you see that?
All there, Simon, looking fabulous.
Wonderful. Right, super. Oh, somebody's raised a hand. Okay, we'll go and have a look at that in a minute. So number of things about the VFairs platform. This is where you come into. Obviously, there's the code of conduct. So another mention for that. So please go and read the code of conduct. It is all about being a safe environment. We want to encourage people to ask questions, to challenge. And we'll talk about challenge in my keynote, which is coming up. But do remember, this is a community. We do want to make this a safe environment for everyone. So the other thing is there is a lounges. And so if you click on this button here, you can see there's the Join the Enchanted Library Sustainability, Join the Crystal Cavern Recovery, or Join Chamrel. I've actually got these open. There we are. And so you can see questions. Come and say hello. I can see Jane is there, hidden away in the the help desk. I'm going to say hi, Jane. I will get Jane on the screen at some point during the event, but hopefully Jane will respond. So there's an area for you to have a chat about sustainability and talks. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jane. There is the Crystal Room recovery and the help desk. Any problems, we'll be hanging around in there. There's a welcome video as well, which has been put together. You've got the main auditorium. So let's go back to the lobby, the main auditorium where the talks are happening. You see over here, we've got the agenda. And if you click on that, you can see the talks. There's Simon and Steve, and there's this old chap, Simon, giving a keynote on the state of mapping. And then we're into the interesting stuff. We've got the secret to building a business, which is with Charles Burdett from PipDex. How are we going to do better involving patients in healthcare? Sarah Mackay. Sarah works as a consultant within the NHS, and I mean a medical consultant, so an actual doctor. So there's all sorts of mapping that goes on in that space, and so we've got wonderful talks in terms of healthcare, improving business. Then we get into sustainable strategies and how do you cope with change. Anyway, you can read the agenda for yourself. And me and Steve will be popping around. And of course, Damien and Jen will be there with you all along the way. Damien, which track are you looking after today?
Oh,
oh, you're on mute, Damien. You see, now there's two of us who've done it.
Easily done.
Twice, some issue with my slippery finger or something, but I'll be looking after resilience and recovery. That's why I sort of mentioned that and why that's been my focus.
Perfect. And Jen, you're therefore looking after
the sustainability track.
No, I can't ask any preferences, anything, because that would be so unfair. So I won't do that. Naughty Simon.
But the good thing is it's recorded, so even if people miss one session, they can always watch it later on.
Perfect. Yeah, all the sessions are recorded. So as Jen said, they will be available. I think we're putting them on YouTube afterwards, so you will be able to see them there. Right, so if I go back, we've also got our sponsors, Essential, MapKeep, PipDex. I mean, these all link to various sites. So MapKeep is a online tool for creating maps with other people. So please, go and check them out. We've got also Superstars. So Superstars is Steve's company. And Steve is not only organizing, helps financially back this as well. So thank you, Steve. Do you want to mention anything about Superstars, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Yeah, so Superstars is a D&I recruitment company. So we go back because Simon and I go back for, 15 years or so. So even pre-Canonical as well in those times. So and it's just been a privilege. And I see this more as just giving back, and it's all for me. It's about the Parkinson's charities and cancer research and just getting fabulous people together to sort of do something really amazing. So I very much see this event as a making a difference and learning kind of place to be. So I'm super excited about it also. And we'll be doing this, fingers crossed, every 2 years. So because we need a break, because it's so hard to put it all together.
We do need a break. I mean, so much goes into it. And we've also got some other links on here. Learn Wardley Mapping, which is Ben's site. There's also things, sites like wardleymaps.com as well. And we've got online Wardley Maps. Right, I think we've burnt the 15 minutes as an introduction. We've also got our charities on the right-hand side, Parkinson's and cancer research, and links to go and find out about those. So I think we've introduced the site, we've introduced the people involved. Big thanks to our speakers. Big thanks to also you, the audience, because otherwise we'd be sitting here talking to no one. This is all a volunteer effort, by the way, so please be mindful, be kind, because people have given up lots of time and effort over the last year to make this happen. And I think at that point, we probably should get started.
Just one quick note,
Oh,
Simon.
yes.
To the V payers person, if you could just check my message, because it seems that the chat is only for us hosts and panelists at the moment. Like people can't send to everyone. So if the V payers person can check that, thank you very much. Right now, the messages only goes to hosts and panelists in the chat.
Cool. Oh, you're on mute, Simon.
Oh, what happened to Simon?
You're on mute.
Oh, he's done it again. Typical, you know, there we are. I will get used to it. I'm just saying that I was able to say good morning on chat. And I think I'm all, other than the fact I pressed that mute button. There we are. I've got to stop doing that. I think I'm ready to go. Have I missed anything, Steve?
No, you've been absolutely fabulous as normal, as well as Jen and Damien. And thank you, VFairs Rep, for looking after us. So let's go. Let's go and have fun.
Let's go. Right. Okay, so I better share my screen. Hang on, let me get my presentation up. And I've got half an hour. So let's share that screen. Can you see that?
Yep, it's up and running, looking great.
Wonderful. Welcome to MapCamp 2024. Gosh, we'll just have to get slicker at this. We've only been doing this 8 years anyway, so but it's more like a family thing anyway. So welcome to MapCamp 2024. I'm going to talk about the basics of mapping because, you know, there might be some people who've come along and haven't seen mapping before. So we better do a quick introduction. Then I want to talk about a concept of perspective. Might be a little bit complex, or maybe not, but do shout out and obviously there is chat and we'll keep an eye on that as well, and people have questions, happy to answer. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about sustainability and recovery, and then I'm going to talk about the fireside chat at the end of the day. Unfortunately, Rachel, who's part of the Rachel is an old friend, a very old friend, had a family matter come up, so won't be able to attend, sadly, the fireside chat. It's going to be Roger Martin and Dave Snowden. We're going to be there, and myself. We're going to be there. I'm probably going to see if we can get somebody else to come along and join us as well. But sadly, Rachel won't be available. Okay. So the basics of mapping. Right. Most organizations have lots of maps. They have things like this: systems maps, they have customer journey maps, they have mind maps. But if you take one of these maps, and you know, this was a systems map from a company called For Tango back in around about 2005. And this is for building an online photo service. And there's a number of different components on it. And one of them just highlighted CRM. Well, if I move that across the screen, how has the map changed? And the answer is, Steve, do you want to jump in with the answer?
After all these years, I'm still
After all these years.
learning.
Well, it hasn't changed, has it? It's exactly the same. And the reason for this is it's not a map, it's a graph. Okay, so if you take a geographical map and you take Australia and shift it next to the UK, that map has changed, but not here, because it's not actually a map, it's a graph. And most of the things in business that we call maps aren't actually maps, they're graphs. So just to explain what I mean by that, here is a graph, 3 locations: Nottingham, London, Dover, connected by 2 roads, roughly the M1, M2. That's probably wrong. I've probably got the wrong roads wrong, but there we are. It doesn't matter, not important. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move Nottingham and put it over there. How has that changed? And the answer is it hasn't. It's a graph. I can twist this and put Nottingham at the bottom. Doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter because there's no direction to anything here. If you want to turn it into a map, you have to give space meaning, because the problem with a graph is that space has no meaning. So I can shift things around. There is no concept of position. There is just simply the nodes and the connections between the nodes. Simple as that. And so if I want to turn it into a map and give space meaning, I have to put some sort of anchor in place. So now, if I move Nottingham, I'm actually changing its position on the map, where it is on the landscape. So that's the other thing you need, an anchor and position. And lastly, you need something known as consistency of movement. And fairly simply, if I'm going north, it means I'm going north. If I'm going south, I'm going south. It's not like if I go south, I'm actually going east. So there's got to be consistency of movement. So if you have all these three things, if you have an anchor, position, and consistency of movement, you can describe a landscape. And that's what a map does. It describes an actual landscape, whereas a graph is just nodes and connections between it. Stevie, does that make sense?
Totally. It makes
Totally.
Because visuals are visuals. This is showing us so much more.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. Okay, so back in 2005, I was running a business, and you're going to hear from Charles. He's going to talk about mapping and his use in pip decks as well, running another business. So I was running my own business. And I thought, well, I need to have some sort of map of the environment that I'm actually operating in, because I had all these graphs and I was looking at this question of strategy, and I realized that one of the key things I need in strategy is an understanding of the landscape itself. So I created a map of my own business, but to show you the concept, if you're new, I like to use a tea shop, because it's fairly simple and everybody likes, well, hopefully everybody likes tea. So if we're going to start with a tea shop, we're going to start with, what are the anchors? Well, we hope the public likes to drink cups of tea. And we know we've got a tea shop, which is a business which wants to sell cups of tea. Okay, so those are going to be the anchors at the top. You can have more than one anchor. You can have several. We could have government regulators. They like to inspect tea shops, make sure we're not poisoning people and things like that. So we've got the public and business connected through a cup of tea. All right. So that's anchor, but we need to get to position and movement. Well, it turns out that a cup of tea itself has needs. It needs tea, it needs cup, it needs hot water needs cold water kettle needs power. And so what you've got here is actually position described through a chain of needs. So the further you go down the chain, the less visible, further away. So like a concept of distance, the further away it becomes to things high up the chain. And you can have many, many chains if you wish on a single map. Now at least we've got anchor and position. But that's still a graph because we're missing movement. But it turns out that each of these components are actually different forms of capital. And they evolve from genesis to custom built to product to more of a commodity. And so if we simply ask how evolved those components are, now we've got position described through a chain of needs, and we've got movement described through the process of evolution. And this is a map. So if you move something in here, it changes the meaning of the map. And so formally, that's what it looks like. You've got this axis at the bottom of evolution, and then you've got a dotted line for value chain because you've got multiple chains potentially on a single map. So why do we do this? Well, one of the things about maps is they enable people to challenge your assumptions. So when we talk about environment, we talk about a landscape, the information that we need is normally in the heads of multiple people. And so we want to get consensus. We want to get those ideas out so we understand the business space that we're actually in. Now, the problem is most organizations are story-led. And we tell everybody that great leaders are great storytellers. And the problem with that is that when you challenge somebody's story, you're actually saying you're not a great leader. You're challenging their leadership ability. So they get super, super. I can see Steve is nodding here as well. We've all experienced this, but we're getting super, super defensive. People will go like, oh, you're challenging my story. Because execs, when they talk about challenge, what they really mean is not that you challenge them, but that they challenge you. That's what they really like. So the beauty about a map is you don't actually challenge the person. You challenge the map. You're not saying, I think you're wrong, or your story is wrong. You say, I think there's something wrong with the map. So, for example, Steve, do you want to come in here and quickly challenge my wonderful story of a tea shop?
Well, I couldn't because it's all on the map, so we can see, can't we? So we can start moving things around. So it's not challenging; it's actually much more conversational. So, which is the beauty of mapping, right?
Yes, it's a very pleasant form of mapping. If I showed you this as my tea shop, is there anything you'd say?
Why is the kettle over there?
Why is the kettle custom built? Absolutely, that's always. And by the way, this is not pre-scripted.
Why would
It wasn't. And that's on. Everybody always goes, Simon, why have you put kettle in custom built? And the answer is because it's an invitation to challenge the assumptions that I've made about this tea shop. I mean, why on earth would you have a kettle in custom built? But it's amazing how many times you see this in business, that we are custom building things which are really a commodity. So what the map is enabling me to do is to challenge the assumptions of what we're doing without challenging the person. And from this, we learn all sorts of patterns, etc. We can start getting into the whole thing of strategy, all sorts of gameplay. All right, so that's the basics, the introduction. And so I want to talk about an issue which is quite important to me, which is to do with perspective. And to explain that, I'm going to use an example I've used before called Chess World. I want you to imagine you live in a world where everybody plays chess, and how well you play the game determines your success in this world, okay? The thing is, no one's ever seen a chessboard. No one even knows a chessboard exists. All they've ever seen are these characters on a computer screen. And you play the game of chess by simply pressing buttons. So what happens is, the computer will tell you which buttons you're allowed to press. So I can press the horsey one, the knight, or the one over there, which is the pawn. So I'm like, oh, which should I go for? Which should I go for? Oh, I'm going to go for pawn. Right. My opponent sees that I've pressed the pawn button. And so they make a move and they decide to go for pawn as well. Exciting game, this. So now the computer will tell me I've got these different options. Oh, what should I go for? I've got this one in the middle here, queen over here. I like the horsey one, but I'm going to go for pawn again. So I press the pawn button, and then the opponent presses a button. They press queen. And this goes on for ages and ages and ages, until eventually somebody wins, or more likely the game is a draw or something along those lines. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to start to collect thousands of sequences of these games, hundreds of thousands. I'm going to put them into my, I don't know, big data systems, whatever, use my machine learning models to sort of try and identify patterns in this. So if the sequence is pawn, king, pawn, I know I should press bishop. And in fact, people will write books on this. They'll write books like The Power of the Queen, The Secret of Success, how you should constantly spam the queen button. As soon as the queen button appears, just press it as much as you can, and you will win the game. We'll have entire books written on this. Very, very exciting. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to end up playing, I've read all the books. I'm really good at this stuff. I played loads of games. I'm going to play against somebody who's a relative novice, but unbeknownst to me, they've only just started. But I don't know this. They can see something called the board. I can't see it, but they can see the board, right? And so, there I am, grandmaster. So I start off and I press pawn. That's my favorite opening move. And then they come back with pawn, right? Fair enough. And then I come back with pawn. I like my pawn openings. And then they come back with queen. I've lost the game. And I'm like, what happened there? How on earth did that happen? How do I not, I can't see the board. I don't even know there's a board there. All I see are the sequences. So I'm absolutely, completely flummoxed. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write this down as this is my new secret of success. If I ever see this sequence again, pawn, 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 I know I hit it with a queen, I'm going to win the game if I'm black. And so I have, I'm just like, I play this player and they keep on beating me all the time. I'm just totally confused. So I play somebody else, they're playing white and they open up with pawn. And I'm like, oh God, please, please. I press pawn, taking us down the sequence. They press pawn. And I'm like, yes, I've got you. I'm going to apply my secret of success. I'm going to win the game. I press queen and nothing happens. The game just continues on and on. And I'm like, no, I don't understand this. I have no idea. I mean, they won with that sequence. Why didn't I win? So in reality, what actually happened is the first time they pressed pawn, I'm not in one game. I'm in 16 possible permutations of the game because any one of these pawns can move. And then when I press pawn, well, now I'm in potentially 256 possible permutations of the game. And then when they press pawn, well, they're 16, 16, and 15 possible permutations of the game. So we're into 3,840 different scenarios we could be in. And so when I press the queen button, well, I will win, but only one in approximately 15,000 times. So just that very, very simple sequence. It should be when I play the sequence, I always get the same result, but it's missing coordinate information. If it was instead pawn and the first pawn to move was f2 to f3, so if it had coordinates in there, then every time I played the sequence, it would give me exactly the same result. But because it doesn't have those coordinates, I get completely different results. And so only 1 in 15,000 times will I win. And it's much, much worse if you've got large sets of data. So you've got this sequence of data that you've collected. Well, that particular sequence involves trillions of different permutations. I mean, many times, nobody wins, or we may win halfway through the game, or there are many, many possible permutations of games from that simple sequence. And so we lulled into this sort of idea that the environment is unpredictable, it's complex. Where in fact, actually, no. Our problem is our perspective. The fact we're looking at it in the wrong way. In order to change that perspective, we need challenge. We need to challenge our idea of secrets of success. We need to realize there are frequencies or there are individuals who are somehow winning the game far more often than others. Okay. What is it they're actually looking at? Is there a different perspective, a different way of looking at the problem? And so a lot of the talk today, obviously, we got the two main themes are about sustainability and recoverability, including topics like resilience. There are a few topics which are more heated, more story-led, sustainability and recoverability. And these are topics which it's important to look at things from different perspectives, not only different perspectives in terms of how we look at the environment or how we view the landscape, but also the motivations of people in those spaces as well. What do I mean by that? So I took a group of 70 people and we decided to map out the field of sustainability, focusing more on the climate and the environment rather than sustainability of business. And the first thing I did, I asked everybody what matters. And, I'm not expecting you to read these. I hope you don't. What happened? We got an absolute, slew of Post-it notes of things that matter. Everything mattered. Okay, so how do we deal with that? The first thing we did was we grouped them. So we have all these Post-it notes, and I'm only I'm showing you a subset. There was a huge number of Post-it notes. we found that there was common things in those post-it notes. Some were about social equity, some were about social narrative, some were about resources. So we could start to group them together. And then what we did for these different themes, we picked a number. We picked 8 different themes. And we started going through the process of mapping out each of these different themes. So we broke into 8 different groups. Now, the reason why you do this is, if you imagine no one's ever mapped Paris and you send a group to go and map Paris and they come back with a map, you ask them what's important about Paris. They might say Pierre's Pizza Parlor, because they've mapped it from a perspective of nice places to eat pizza. And so Pierre's Pizza Parlor is like the most important thing. So what you do is you send multiple groups out to map an area. And then they will come back with different perspectives and, have maps from different perspectives. If you now ask them what's important, if you aggregate across all the maps, then you start to discover things like the Eiffel Tower, because it appears in many maps. And maybe Pierre's Pizza Parlor was really only important for one perspective, but not for all perspectives. So that's exactly what we're doing here in terms of sustainability. I mean, I just showed 3 lines. We had 8 groups all mapping different perspectives. And once we had those maps, we were able to ask questions about where should we invest for sustainability. But even then, you ask it from 2 different perspectives, or we did. One was where should we invest to improve society? And where do we invest to make money? And it turned out the answers were different. So if you want to improve sustainability from a perspective of society, you'd invest in things like civic engagement, people's parliaments, compliance and auditing, measurement. But if you want to focus from a perspective of growth and money, you'd invest in technology, innovation, carbon capture. You invest in new financial instruments, things like carbon offsets or derivatives based upon them. You'd invest in lobbying government, basically not to make any changes. So there is a big difference between what we do to make money and what we do to improve society. Now, this was one particular area, sustainability. I've done this across 17 different industries, and it's always the same. So with things like healthcare, if you want to improve healthcare in terms of benefit to society, you'd focus on reporting and measuring patient-reported outcomes. Something called prompts. You do health outcomes audited and measured on that. You do lots of sharing of medical data. If you want to make money, you'd focus on personalized medicine and preventative healthcare. The market has lots of stuff. Preventive healthcare is quite interesting because we don't actually know, if we don't focus on patient-reported outcome measures, what do we know actually makes people healthy? Sarah was part of this group, and Sarah's also speaking today. So big recommendation for Sarah's talk. So I want you to, when you're in these talks, challenge the map, because don't challenge the person, their story. Look at the map and ask questions maybe about the map, maybe about the position of things. Always, if you've got something you want to know, challenge the map, because it is a safe environment, and challenging the map is not challenging the person. And I also want you to think about perspective, and that perspective is in multiple different forms. Is this the right way of visualizing this problem? Is this the right way of visualizing the landscape? Is there a different perspective we should be looking from? Are we thinking about social, or are we thinking about market growth and economic biases? One of the things people often ask me is, can we use AI and large language models to do this sort of mapping? And the answer is yes, we can. But unfortunately, these large language models are trained upon market data, and as a result of which they inherently have a market bias within them. And so I've done a number of experiments where this keeps on coming through. So if you start doing things like trying to use, the daftest thing to do would be say, oh, we'll get a large language model to write our policy for us. I mean, that's great. You'll end up with a policy which is all focused on growth and supporting the market rather than supporting society. And remember, the role of government is to balance two things: the need of the market, which is based upon property and trade, and therefore based upon exclusion. So it's balancing the need for exclusion versus the need of people to feel included. So opportunity, so, fairness. And governments always have that role of balancing exclusion and inclusion. You need a bit of both. If you want a market, you need the exclusion. If you want a cohesive society, you need inclusion. So you need to, government's role is always balancing. And so if you have a system which is very much biased towards what the market is, that can be quite destabilizing for a society. So be very, very careful. I mean, embrace large language models. I find them incredibly useful. We talked about the frequency of if you didn't understand the environment, if you didn't understand the coordinates of the game, you'd only get the winning result 1 in 15,000 times, but that's actually information. And if you run enough sequences through a system, you can actually use those frequencies to start to understand the environment itself. So that's a really difficult thing to do, but it's a fairly natural thing for a large language model. So the interesting thing about these AIs is, unbeknownst to lots of people, they might be picking up the underlying patterns within them. So this is why you should embrace them, because they're useful in that, but just be mindful of the biases and the perspective they come from. Anyway, that's enough of me talking about the basics of mapping and perspective, which is the subject that I really wanted to get onto. We've got some wonderful talks about sustainability and recoverability. I'm very mindful. I've got 3 minutes left, so I'm not going to go into a rant on some other random subject like AI, which I love to do. You can probably get me in the chat rooms, and I'll happily go there. Have a great day. Really enjoy yourself, and see you at the fireside chat. Steve, any questions?
Still learning lots. Brilliant, Simon. Thank you so much as ever. And yeah, very interesting one. Definitely how AI and that whole synopsis is. And I love perspective because that's fantastic. That's something that I utterly believe in. And that's why I smiled at the challenging. So look at it from a great perspective, because good in, good out, bad in, bad out.
Well, see, the AI ones, it's really interesting because when we talk about large language models, and I can take you through maps on this, we can do this later. I mean, AI changes not only our tool sets, but in combination with other components. So what I mean by that is we're starting to see things like copilots. So this actually goes back to an earlier idea, which was from Jonna Freeman, made famous by Nicholas Negroponte in Architecture by Yourself, which is basically that the design process is a conversation between multiple designers, or it might be 2 different minds in the head of one designer. But it's a conversation between multiple perspectives of design. And what's interesting is that the machine is now becoming part of that conversation, one of those designers. So the tool sets is changing, but also the language is changing. So we're going away from things like declarative languages to more prompt, and prompt is a Turing complete language because there's memory now involved. And so prompts are more conversational language itself in a conversational environment. So the tool sets are changing, and the language is changing, but also the medium is changing. So in the past, it was always code was text, but now code can be images. You can build things from an image. That can be the seed. And so this changes the nature, and you see this actually in engineering departments. Whenever they're fixing a problem, there's 2 conversations going on. There's one on the screen, which is about rules, style, and syntax of the code. And the same problem is being discussed on a whiteboard, and it's very visual, and it's all about objects, relationship, and context. So we have two different conversations, one which is about the image, very context related, and one which is style related. So you're getting a change of toolset, language, and medium. Now, that's very powerful because those three things are how we reason around the world. So if you put those into the hands of a small group of people, you are basically giving them control about how you reason around the world. So imagine, and another example, say the toolset is the printing press, the medium is paper, the language is the written word. Imagine if somebody had control of that. And I'd come along and say, I think we need a new word for how species of creatures change. I think we should adapt over time. I think we should call it evolution. And they went, no. Oh, okay. I'd like to write a paper, publish a paper and distribute it about this concept, which we'll give it a word, but I can see we can't call it. No, you can't have that paper either. You can't publish that. Right, well, I'll just write it down. No, you're not writing that on paper. Imagine if someone could control that. I mean, what a terrifying, you've got now a new theocracy. You've handed over the ability to reason to somebody else. The only way you can actually create a new enlightenment is if all of this stuff is open source, all the way down to the training data, all the symbolic instructions. Of course, we've got all the lobbyists out there saying open source AI is dangerous, it'll lead to Skynet. And they've got a perspective, which is they're paid for to work on behalf of their clients. Their clients are driving us into this new theocracy. So as beautiful, as powerful as the particular machine learning models, which LLM is based upon, we have AI, the field, and machine learning is a subset. Within that, you've got large language models. As beautifully powerful as these things like ChatGPT, etc., are, we have to be very, very mindful of a new theocracy, whether it's through gatekeepers, guardrails, or literally handing control over to specific companies. But anyway, yes. I said I wasn't going to overrun. Damn it, I overran. We better get going.
Fascinating as ever. And
as always, you take care. All right. So everybody else, you've got like 10 minutes, 13 minutes to get into the rooms. Who we've got hang on, let me just put up the who have we got first of all? We've got in the Enchanted Room, we've got Make It Stressful with Charles Burdett, Pit Decks. And in the Crystal Cavern Room, fantastic, we've got How Are We Going to Get Better, Involving Patients in Healthcare, Improving Work with Sarah. Those are two great talks. They both start at 9 o'clock. Go have fun.
All right. Thank you, Star. Have fun, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.